Ooh. Hey, howdy. How's everyone doing today? So yesterday I did my job hunt thing. Also spent several hours in the role of creative consultant, apparently, because that's one of the many things that I do now, or whatever. Um, and I was a little frustrated, honestly, when I went to bed. There was some stuff that I saw that was promising. I was like, I was interested. I'm like, eh. And I was watching a video earlier today about the House of Gemini on Wrestling Around. And I guess for a second, it made me think of like the type of life I want to have. And if I necessarily want it to be as mundane, I don't want to say mundane, but as mundane as I'm kind of sort of looking. And this is the thing about me that annoys me is that sometimes I forget things. And I think I was heading down a path that isn't bad, but it isn't all of what I want. And so I forgot, I guess, that there were a commercial. This video was not sponsored by Summerlands. That's it. I'm turning the music off. See, I was already feeling some type of way about it anyway. I don't know if y'all heard it, but it was Japanese winter flute sounds or something. I'm kind of sort of over jazz. But anyway, it was like there are some things that I want. And I think in my mind, I play this game between doing some things now to establish myself for a certain role that I want in the future and wanting to have the fluidity and flexibility now for the things that life may present that no one knows what the future holds, but it's some things that, like, if the universe is saying something to me repeatedly, I listen. If I feel like that shouldn't be surprising. um and what, so that rest and relaxation, or rest and rejuvenation and relaxation that came out the other night, and the Whispers of Lord Ganesha, and in the energy oracle cards, I think I need to like remember that and like chill out. And I think it'll be revealed to me more and more. And honestly, I think sometimes it's not fully a scarcity mindset, but I'm just like ready to start building. But I also don't want to rush into something, especially when something better, or not better, but something that I more want is possible or on its way. What's this? Oh, this is interesting. The pen came out, and I just thought about this yesterday. Or the nip, the catnip. The nip came out. Um, no slips here. I saw that Justin Timberlake actually like started offering some apologies to people. He was like, wow, like that was really me back in the day. Like I kind of sort of just let that happen. Like y'all remember why Janet got banned from the Super Bowl? And then he apologized. And it wasn't even her fault. Anyway, let me not get too far off track. I'm using the Kawaii Tarot and the Fortune Tellers. There's no necessarily rhyme or reason to this today. I had an idea to pull through the alphabet, but I might do it. I put way too many cards in this one. Oh, six of pennies. What's this? Oh, the King of Swords. Okay. Um, back on track. So and the Six of Swords. I had an opportunity that I didn't end up taking in January. And I said that it was teaching me that maybe I can get to where I want a lot quicker than I think. And it also had an energy of not taking a necessarily roundabout approach, but being a little bit more direct. And honestly, like, one of my plans was to, so I have an engineering degree. One of my plans was to work in industry for a certain amount of time. I think after you work for 4 years with your PE, with the FE, you get to apply for the PE, which is a practicing engineer. And I could basically go into freelance consulting. It may take a little bit longer because it was also like if I do that, I would have to build out my portfolio. But then when I make it to that point, I get to determine my own hours, like when I work, where I work, maybe do things more remotely, a little bit more senior level. And it's not that I don't want to do that. It kind of honestly feels like there are multiple sort of timelines running and that I could end up on any one of them. And the different timelines, what I do isn't necessarily extremely different, but it runs a few different parallels on my approach. And the one that I would like to be on doesn't, I mean, I don't know what it looks like, but there is a certain flexibility that I want that I kind of sort of gave up on. But I have enough resources where I could talk to someone and someone more experienced or knowledgeable to actually come up with a plan on how I want to build and establish myself because there are certain things that I want to do. And more than anything, right now, I kind of sort of just want to work. I kind of don't know why. Maybe there's a part of me that's like, I have my degree now. I've been without work for a certain amount of time. It would be really nice to be making money. Um, but making money isn't necessarily a goal of mine. So it's time to rest, relax, slow down, get clear on what I want, think a little bit. Ooh, Ten of Pentacles. Okay. With the five. That's 15 pentacles altogether. That's the Devil of Pentacles. And the devil was at the top. He's right there. I don't want to trap myself in a job where I'm making a lot of money or a decent amount of money, but I don't necessarily get the fulfillment or the happiness or the flexibility that I wanted. And then it becomes a thing of, oh, well, if I do anything else, then there's a hit on this money that I'm going to have to take. And money isn't something that's important to me. But I know that, like, once we establish a certain level or once we establish a certain lifestyle, depending on how things change, it may be difficult to adjust. Oh, okay, but the star just came out. But the Eight of Cups at the bottom of the deck. I feel like this Eight of Cups, its reading is different. And the Six of Wands is right there. Yeah. The Eight of Cups, since the cups are all face down, it's like they're all holding or preserving the liquid. Now, with the face down cup, it's easy to see it as one where all the water would spill out. But there's something about, I guess it depends on the modality. This feels like it's a modality of something that's usually fluid. And so, because it's always moving, it doesn't really gain any traction in one area. And I talked yesterday or last night, whenever I did that, about how with my South Node being in Gemini and my North Node being in Sagittarius, maybe it's time for me to focus or to dedicate myself more to one thing rather than, being so I could do this or I could do that, like where I'm at now. And so it's okay to take it a little slower, to think about it. And that's also something that I've been seeing a lot because I've been looking at a lot of like rotationy types of programs, entry level, where it's like 2 years and you rotate between 3 or 4 different positions. You find one you like and then you stick with the goal of working at that company long term. And so I guess it has gotten me to think in more long term ways rather than, like, I'm gonna just get this job for this time, for the time being, and then move on to something else. But these are both eights. Anyway, it's like the answer lies in actually sticking to something or finding something that I can stick with and actually pouring into it and building it out. That, because the Eight of Cups, more than walking away, it's about breaking emotional patterns. Just like the Eight of Swords can be the challenge to break or to at least see mental ones. Oh, look who just came out. The Devil. But the Ace of Swords is at the bottom. I think the Devil with the Ace of Swords, it carries an energy of understanding how we limit and sabotage ourselves. And then the Ten of Pentacles is behind that Ace of Swords, which again takes me to that, like, for me, the breaking the pattern would find something and actually putting the effort into it. I think one thing that I've realized a lot within the past like 4 years. So my buddy who just came back stateside, I might go like see him for a few days. I'm excited before I have my follow-up surgery. Um, I talked to him last night and I was like, hey, like maybe I could come see you for a few days before I have my surgery and then life begins. And he was like, oh, I got work, but maybe I can take a day off. And I was like, actually, maybe I could like shadow you for a day. Cause he's an engineer. And I've never really been like in the field. And so I don't know. It may show me something. Um, but since I met him, I've realized how quick I am to try to be done with people. And I said Eight of Cups was emotional patterns. And I think it's something that I've talked about before, but because of my past and my pain and my trauma and my response to all of that, I didn't really put much into relationships. Kind of sort of ready to go at a moment's notice. And not necessarily flighty, but not extremely understanding to the things that other people go through. Especially like when I get upset. Like if I'm not upset, I can be patient and understanding. And it's not usually like a one offense type of scenario. But like if somebody hurt or upsets me and they don't take the time or the energy or effort to try to understand why, then in my mind it was a relationship of no substance. Because it's like if you can't even care enough about me to try to understand where I'm coming from, this ain't gonna work for me. But I also don't think I did the best job at trying to explain or giving people the opportunity to learn me. And so after, because we stopped being friends like 3 times, I was like, I'm done with this. I don't need toxic people in my life. Because he was a taker, high key. I'm like, I don't need takers in my life. Like, if you ain't gonna give nothing back, I don't need this. And like, first, it was like cultural and personal differences. That was the misunderstanding. And then, I don't know, but eventually, you know, we solidified our friendship. And the solidification, like, he improved over time, but I also did. And it also coincided with me actually facing and healing a lot of the things that I was going through. But coincidentally, it wasn't until after he graduated and moved and started like his post grad life that I came more fully into my healing. And so Like, because I started my journey early November. By mid-November, we went to London, and I was like 7 days into my Headspace meditation, the 10-day beginner course. I was like 7 days in, but we went to London. And even that, like, few weeks was enough to completely change how I approach our dynamic. And what's the most interesting to me now is that, like, somewhere within the past year or two, not surprisingly, from my perspective of my journey, I think I've actually softened up a lot. And I was talking to him, and it's like, because I guess we don't talk super, super, super often. And since I don't see him every day anymore, there are like day to day things or like little things that build up. And so it's like sometimes, and it may not be there, it may just be how I'm seeing it. But sometimes it feels like there's a little trepidation on his part. And I'm like, oh, it's cool. And it's all like text. So, there's no real tone in a message that you read in your own brain. But also with the devil and the ace of swords, not only have I seen how I think the devil and the ace of swords for me, especially within the course of the past 2 years or the past year and a half, the past however long, there have been so many moments where I'll be in a situation and I'll handle it one way, and it'll be so obvious and apparent, like, wow, like, this is why I went through what I went through before. This is why I experienced what I experienced before. Because now in this space, I can show up in a way that I never would have been able to. And it makes me really, really, really grateful because now I can be closer to who I actually am with a lot less of that, basically, what were trauma responses, or not even trauma responses, just a lack of compassion in some point or understanding. Like, I think understanding is something that I tried to, like, gain, but I didn't always act from that place of understanding, or I didn't always approach it the most compassionately. Like, very, I don't want to say Capricornian because I feel like that gives Capricorn a bad rep, or it plays on the more like the less great stereotypes of Capricorn. And it's not that relationships for me were transactional, but they were like emotionally transactional. So if they required me to like give more emotionally or to be more understanding or patient or kind emotionally, but I wouldn't receive the same in turn, like, I would be done. And it's not that that's necessarily bad, but anything in excess can be not great. And it was a lot of that in excess. And so what I've been learning basically since I met him, or what I've been seeing, is how to kind of sort of slow down, how to get over myself a little bit, how to not take everything so seriously. Because because sometimes like things aren't necessarily a big deal. I understand that. But for me, it was always like, well, it's the principle. It's the principle. It's the fact that you would do this in the first place. It doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter, it's the principle. But I think another thing that I've really learned in the past few years is to, in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of scenarios and situations, since last, since May 2019, probably especially, I've been learning to learn people maybe. or to grow with people, or to basically just to have a lot more grace and patience and understanding. Like actually like practiced understanding to the point of like compassion. Because I think there was a part of me that could always like sympathize. But even if I sympathize in my mind, sometimes it's like, yeah, like I understand where you're coming from, but that doesn't give you the right to treat me the way you're treating me right now. And I'm over this. Instead of being like, I understand where you're coming from right now. And that doesn't give you the right to treat me the way that you're treating me. But I can also understand that it's not necessarily about me or directed at me. I don't know. Oh, Ten of Pentacles and the Six of Swords. It's an understanding, especially with swords. It's an understanding and a mental elevation that I had to have to reach the Ten of Pentacles. And the Ten of Pentacles, in this case, for me, it's about familial relations or just relations with people that are closer. It's a solidified cup. It's a cup that I basically don't want to go anywhere because it's like family, right? So the cards that came out actually are teapot and pen. These came out a long time ago. The pen, I was thinking of the pen lately because in the senior send off, there was a map or a board, and they were like, put a pen with where you're going after graduation. And I was like, oh, I don't know where I'm going. And they're like, oh, if you don't know where you're going, just put a pin in the middle of the ocean somewhere. I was like, okay. And I was like, oh, well, I've been thinking about Seattle. So I put a pin in Seattle. And she's like, well, if you put the pin there, then you're going to have to go there. And I was like, oh, and she was like, have you ever been to Seattle? I was like, no. She's like, what? I was like, yeah, something in me just like was like, maybe Seattle. But there's another thing that literally just came into my mind. And I talked about it the last time I was on here, just rambling. Was what Alex said to me. Like, just because you made a decision at a certain point in time with the information that you had doesn't mean that you have to stick to that decision, especially when you acquire more information or when things change because life is dynamic. It's fluid, nothing is necessarily static. And with the pillow on the cushion, it's like it's been removed from the board and I'm free to choose again. Like, I can be fairly open minded and I can dream fairly big. But I think sometimes I still limit myself, and I don't have to. And so maybe that's why that the relaxation and the rest and rejuvenation came out, or another reason why it came out rather than just, like chill the F out, take a break. If I could, oh, I was gonna say if I could get a vacation, that would be amazing, but I might have like a mini vacation, mini retreat part two coming up for a few days. That'll be really nice. Um, but also it's to like really sort of think about what I want to start building towards. Teapot is deep friendship with someone of the same sex. That's my buddy. That's the buddy I'm going to see. I love the teapot because it reminds me of Three Cups of Tea. And I was talking about how there were like cultural differences. Like he's Indian, I'm American, I'm African American, he's Indian from India. Um, and so there were subtle things that honestly for me it was more like personal quirks because I'm a quirky person. Like the things that upset me aren't necessarily the things that typically upset people. And there are some things that I can like don't really take necessarily as seriously. I don't take a lot of stuff seriously except for like treating people with decency and respect. Like I take that seriously, but besides that, I don't know, contrary to what you may think. Maybe I'll take that back. But I don't. Anyway, And in Three Cups of Tea, it was this, apparently it was a fraud, but it was an organization of some dude who would like go to, he like went to some place, to a village or something, and he was trying to like integrate, I guess, himself in. And like the first, it's like first cup of strangers, second cup of friend, third cup, you're part of the village. Well, here's the teapot. Where's the cup? There's a lot of cards in this deck. I don't even know if there's a teacup, but I'm gonna go looking for it. There's the rose. Romance is in the air. Also, the pen is new job slash career, and I was talking about that. So, actually, for this, for the teapot and the pen, new job and career connected to the deepening of a friendship with someone of the same sex. That's I'll just say that that's extremely accurate for me. Okay, there's like hundreds of cards in this deck, so we're just gonna take it as it comes. Well, here's a bowl. No, we're looking for cups. Oh, look, there's the cup right there. Oh my gosh. Oh, hold up, hold up. Well, they're slightly different, but boom. I didn't have to look through the whole deck. So the bowl is the card that came before the cup. The card after the cup is the leg. Okay. I see August before the bowl. I see Money Path at the bottom of the deck. I don't know. I've never seen Money Path before. A path with money is waiting for you to find it. That's the energy I've also been in. It's like, and I think that's why sometimes, or I think that's why I was getting a little frustrated because I feel like there's something like right there, almost like it's playing hide and seek. That is like the path moving forward for me. But it's like I can't find it. And honestly, like the reason why I stopped, or not the only reason why I stopped, but yesterday I was like, I started to get that feeling that I was like trying to brute force my way to something, or I was like I was starting to put too much into it. And I was like, you know what? I need to just stop here. And then I played some video games, I think maybe. August is here. And see, I see some things and it's like starts May 2021. And I'm like, May 2021, that's months away. I want something now. But it's like, chill. What's happening right now? Ain't no reason why I can't be here. The cards that came out around the cup, it's the bowl and the leg. Bowl says plenty of material things. Well, the money cup or the money path is at the bottom of the deck. And then the pen with the new career is right there. And stepping into new experience is the leg. Stepping into new experience. It's an energy of crossing a threshold. It reminds me of when I was moving. I lived on campus and I worked on campus. And so over the summer, or like over the summer, I would move from my like academic year residence to wherever I was working over the summer. And then at the end of the summer, I would move into wherever I was living for the next academic year. And there was one year I was off campus and the bus schedule was funny. And so I moved into temporary housing for my summer job. I'm pretty sure it was that. No, it was the end. Yeah, it was the end of that summer. So that's when I was moving off campus. But when the summer job ended and when the lease began, there was like a few days in between. And so I moved into temp housing on campus until my lease started. And I was moving my stuff. I put it all on this cart. It was a little raggedy, and I was moving my stuff. I was pushing the cart to the door to get into the building, and I hit like a little. There was like a crack in the sidewalk, and I hit it, and the only thing that fell off of my this is so funny. This is so symbolic in a few ways. The only thing that fell off of the cart was a shoebox that I had that I put two fish bowls in. And I talked about getting fish bowls at a bar. Now it's not that bar. It was a schooner. It wasn't a fish bowl. It was a schooner. And there was a bar in town where on certain days you would get it was like Thursdays and Sundays maybe. You could get a schooner, which was like 2 pints. It was a glass cup, like a goblet, and we could get like 2 pints of beer for the price of one. And I had my beer buddy who was a tourist. He was pretty cool. He yelled at me one time, and it was like, honestly, it was one of the funniest experiences I've ever had in my life. He was like, "Darn it, Patrick, you need to get your stuff together." And then he was like, "Sorry for yelling at you." And I was like, "That's yelling? You call that yelling? Okay." Um, but I'm also the type of like I'm an extremely keepsakey type of person. And so I got those schooners when I was with him, and I put them in a shoebox and I was moving them. And it was literally the only thing that fell off of the cart when I hit that bump, and they both broke. And so I had to throw them away. And then like he had graduated, and so he wasn't coming back. Now also for me, I guess I'm going all the way into the closet. One of the things that I experienced growing up was like every time I got close to somebody, they would move away. And after a certain point, like that was kind of sort of one of the things in the back of my like that's I kind of sort of stopped getting attached to people a little bit. And then more stuff happened, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna completely isolate myself from people, or completely detach from people, and I'm not gonna form attachments. I don't want to be dependent on anybody, and I'm gonna structure my life in a way where I don't have to be. And even if I'm homeless or on the street, I'd rather do that than depend on somebody. And so that's something that I also had to heal. And that happened first through me getting closer to my family after I had my darkest night. And when I was like starving in my apartment and I didn't know I was going to pay rent, like they came through for me. Um, and so, anyway, in school, it was interesting because I was in college for a while. I had an extended stay. And when graduation comes, like, you know that people are leaving. And so one of my trauma responses was it's like whenever someone hit their senior year, I would just I wouldn't purposefully avoid them, but it's like our relationships would pretty much fall off. So that after they graduated, I would be fine with them leaving. Um, and the buddy who I went on my little retreat with last year, the one who I'm maybe going to see, he was the first person, and I think I told him about it. And he was like, "Oh, well, like, you don't have to worry about blah, 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 whatever, because after I graduate, we're still going to keep in touch." Now, I think what was a little unrealistic, though, was like we literally saw each other every day. At one point, like we lived and worked in the same building. And then we did we did a soybean competition together. And like we went to the same school. So I just like hang out with him, like we go eat dinner and stuff. But we like saw each other almost every day. And so of course after he graduates and moves on, it's not gonna be every day anymore. But it's like, man, you talk to me like once a month. What is this? But anyway, the cups were significant to me because he left, and I'm a keepsakey type of person. I was like, oh, this is something that I got with my friends, so they're important. And I was an RA when I got those because I remember my residents, they would come into my room and I just had them out and they were like, "Oh, what's that on the table?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a cereal bowl. It's for my cereal." They're like, "Yeah, I'm right. We know what that's for." I'm like, "I'm of age. Y'all mind your business. I can drink if I want to. I'm not doing it in the building, and that's what matters." Um, and I don't know why. It's the leg in the cups. Well, basically the leg in the bowl because the cups were huge. They're like 2-pint glasses. Stepping into a new experience, plenty of material things, but I don't know, it just reminded me of the time I was moving. And the only thing that fell off of the cart was the box that I put those 2 cups in, and they both broke, and I threw them away. Also, I was extremely 2 of cups avoidant, or even 3 of cups avoidant. Like I was saying, how the 8 of cups can be like breaking an emotional pattern. It may not necessarily always be walking away, because in the past, my thing was walking away. And what I had to learn to do was to not be so quick to. But tell me about these plenty of material things and stepping into new experiences with the money path at the bottom of the deck. Who this? Oh, judgment. Okay, that's interesting. I want at least one more though. I already saw you. Apparently the mages are coming out. Apparently it's all majors today. But honestly, that's not surprising for what I'm stepping into. The devil did come back out though, so I'm like, whatever. Oh, another major. Okay. I thought I'm checking to see what flipped over in the deck. All right, that's it. Yeah, this is fitting. So I already talked about the Ace of Swords and the Devil. This was in the deck. So what came out is the Devil in the World. So the Ace of Swords was the beginning of those realizations. The Ace of Swords was seeing all the ways in which I kind of sort of was operating under my own toxic programs because of the things that had happened to me. And it's like it was a lot of self directed toxicity as well. But the world is bringing that to a completion. For me, again, like the Ace of Swords, with the Ace of Swords, I had to see it first. And I had to work at bettering myself. I had to work at looking for why I sort of did the things that I did and addressing the hurt and the pain that lied under it. And so it brings me into this space of completion. But with the world card, it's like an expansion of horizons. It's stepping over the threshold into a whole new world. The first card was judgment. Judgment being a space of like, judgment is a decision probably made from a space of introspection or retrospection, followed by action. And here's again the closing of those cycles with the world card. And then what was in the deck was strength and the fool. This is that Aksunade, bravely stepping into the new thing. Even if, and for me, basically the whole world was the shadow for me. It was life after graduation. And it doesn't require as much strength from me now as it would have where I was. Because now it feels like the next step. It's the natural progression of my life. I've, like, when you deal with the devil and you put it to bed, that's where most of that hesitation and resistance comes from. And when I was like doing it, it required a lot of strength in the moment. But for me, it was incremental. Like first it was healing like some family stuff, and then it was healing and dealing with the unpredictability of life and the cards that I was dealt. And then I realized I had relationship anxiety. So for me, it was about getting over that. And like, I had to put myself out there. And it required a lot of strength because before, like, if ever I downloaded an app or something, as soon as I got a message or a match, I would like delete it. I was like, well, this is too much. And I remember I was talking to my Scorpio ex roomie. He was like, what are you doing? You can't do that. But I ended up finding someone for me. I don't know how, but it was like he was the perfect person to sort of like introduce me to the arena of not necessarily dating because we didn't date. Well, we didn't date because that wasn't our dynamic, but we met on an app. We chatted for a while and then we met up. I mean, it's basically making a friend, but if we can't be friends, how are we supposed to be anything else beyond friends, right? But he was like, I don't know, he was a Pisces. He was like quirky. He had his own stuff. It was like heavy. That's one of the things that surprised me about him. It's like we met up. I think that was the first day we met in person. And it was just like heavy. Like the material was heavy. The mood wasn't necessarily. But he was extremely interesting. And he's a really good friend of mine now. And that summer, that's the summer where I didn't want to work on campus. It was summer 2019. It was like I didn't want to work on campus. I wanted a better opportunity. I wanted something that would have looked good on my resume. But I was like, something tells me, like, I ended up applying and I got it, of course, because I worked on campus before. But I was like, even though I don't want to do this, like, something tells me I'm going to meet somebody this summer in this space that's going to like change my life. Or I'm going to meet someone really important. Something tells me I'm going to meet someone really important. I met a few really important people. Two of them were Pisces. One of them was a Sagittarius. All Jupiter ruled. I met a bunch of Jupiterian people. One of them I worked directly with. He is a Sag. He's really cool and like super empathic and just like like he's the type of person that I can look at and he'll look at me and like we can have an entire conversation like without even exchanging a single word. Also, what was also interesting is that like in 2019 I was more intensely on my path of healing. And so I had lived a little bit of my healing in like solitude. In May, the summer job came me like living my healing around other people. And that came with its own lessons, right? But all of the people, like all three of them, basically like the people that I got closest to that summer, were all on their own paths, interestingly enough. And two of them, the one that I directly work with and the one that I indirectly work with, the Sag and the Pisces, one of the Pisces, because apparently I met a whole bunch of Pisces that summer. There was this other dude who was a Pisces and like a Sag moon. I never met up with him though. I should have. He was nice. But again, I was dealing with my own stuff that I didn't even see. My mom was like, okay, so you're investing all of this in someone who's about to leave. And apparently you got all this about people who are about to leave or blah, 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 whatever. Who it's not like who you're just going to have a friendship with, who's not romantically interested in you. But here you have this whole person who's actually interested in you. But your excuse for not really getting to know him better is that you're gonna be leaving before he leaves, even though you know that at the end of the summer, this other dude is gonna leave. Something in here don't add up. And I was like, oh, snap. She might be right. Well, what's this about? Healed it, lived more life. But I kind of sort of helped them on their journeys because of what I had already experienced. And one of the Pisces, I love her. She's amazing. She's like a Pisces sun and moon, though. I'm like, oh, girl, I don't know how you do that. Being a Pisces sun is enough for me. I'm glad I got my Taurus moon. If I had any more Pisces in my chart, I don't think I'd be able to take it. Like my Mercury is in Pisces, but like if I had another like emotional planet in Pisces, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already enough water for me. um, but it positioned me, and like they also helped me. The Sag is the one who actually like fully encouraged me to act in the time that I needed to act to secure my place on campus when no one else said it was possible. The Pisces is actually the one who gave me the idea to contact the person that I ended up contacting. And it's someone, for me, what was interesting about that summer 2019 is that summer 2017, I was the manager in the same, like, so there are like six, I don't know how many buildings there are on residential campus. It's like 16 or more now that they've added new buildings. They're constantly adding new buildings. So maybe like 18 now, even though like two of them are additions to other ones. But after I was an RA, I became like a manager, supervisor, student supervisor, manager type of role this summer. And I worked in that zone. I worked in the building that I lived in. And that's actually the summer that I stopped talking to my mom. I never thought I would not talk to my mom. I'm such a mama's boy, honestly. And I didn't talk to her from like May to maybe October. And I was petty. I was mad. I told y'all about my trauma response or my trauma brain that was like, I don't want to need anybody. Well, my mom was somebody. And I was trying to prove that I didn't need her, kind of sort of to myself, more than to her. But eventually it's like, well, like it was cute and it was fun, but it's not worth continuing this any longer because I don't want to lose my relationship with my mom. You know, if I'm upset in the moment or blah 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 and things happen, that's one thing. But also with judgment, it's like an energy of like how long? It's like, okay, in the moment, maybe it was justified. Let's call it a crime of passion. But how long are you gonna keep this up? And are you willing to miss out on something that could be beautiful? Are you willing to risk permanently damaging a relationship or permanently losing out on one? And again, that was one of those moments where I had to put the devil to bed within me that was so keen on proving that I didn't need anybody. And then when like we met back up, she was like, "Oh, like you actually took care of yourself. I'm proud of you." Or at least like she knew that I could do it. And maybe I also at that time I needed to experience that to prove to myself that I can do it. Um, like I said, I never would have imagined not talking to my mom. But 2 years later, I'm working in the same building, in the same neighborhood, not as the supervisor this time, as someone being supervised. And so the person that I ended up contacting was someone that I actually met the summer that I wasn't talking to my mom, but I was a supervisor manager. And I didn't work directly with her, but I saw her enough that we kind of sort of like, she's extremely cool. I love her. She's amazing. She's probably a Sagittarius. I think she is a Sagittarius. I know I rag on Sagittarian energy sometimes. It's just because the South Node is there. And if, like if somebody got to be called out, Sagittarius can be called out too. I can be just as blunt with Sagittarius as Sagittarius like to think they be with everybody else. Anyway, it ain't about that. Her brother is actually someone that I met like April 2012 because he worked in my building. And he was like a full-time person in the building that I worked in as a student, and he's really cool. And so we formed a relationship or a friendship or he's kind of sort of like a friend mentor type of person. And I didn't even know that that was his sister or his older sister at that. But anyway, the Pisces who worked at the front desk told me about her or reminded me of her. And then the Sag, I was like, "Oh, I'll reach out to her, see if she knows anything." The Sag is the one that was like, "Did you call yet? Did you call yet?" I was like, "No, I didn't." And so when I sat down to send out the emails, because I wasn't necessarily at the point of calling people, I was like, I can take some agency, I can step up, but I ain't gonna call people. I'll baby step to the email. And so I emailed 3 people, one of which I worked for basically since I started there. In 2017, since I took a higher position, I had more access to her. And so we actually kind of sort of saw each other a little bit. 2017 summer was a mess. I'm not going to talk too much about it fully because I don't know how much liberty I am at to discuss it, but they ain't make me sign nothing. One of the camps actually got shut down that summer. It was a mess. It was a mess. It was trash. It was on BBC. I'm like, what? Hearing like hearing the story break on BBC, a story that I was like, I wasn't in the middle, but low key, it was one of the buildings I was in charge of. But I wasn't living in the building. I was living in a different building. It was a whole mess. It was a whole mess. Um, but 2 years later, I reach out to her. I reach out to someone else who I got a little bit closer with that summer, who took over her position. Now, him I actually worked a lot more with. Um, And then I also reached out to the woman that the Pisces was talking about. And I thought that one of the first two would have replied. I just included her on the email just because. But she's actually the one who got back to me, who actually ended up working with me to move back on campus. Now, maybe I was talking about the Wheel of Fortune. I'm pretty sure it was on this channel. And how if you take the Wheel of Fortune off of one track, you better have a track already prepared for it, because you can't just hold on to the Wheel of Fortune and it'll spin out if you don't have it lined up right. And so when I decided to, I don't want to say tempt fate, but I was told the whole summer that getting back on campus would be impossible. I got back on campus, but that came with a whole new slew of situations that led to me not actually being able to start, not like not actually being able to like really start or devote myself to my classes until like the middle of October in 2019, halfway through the semester, which is the reason why I had to take 2 incompletes, do the best I could in the other classes I had. And then those are the classes that I just completed making up in December of 2020. Now I have my degree. Um, man, I'm really going there with this. But yeah, I met some amazing people that summer, and a lot of them just happened to be Pisces for some reason. um, and they helped me open up and connect deeper in like friendship ways. And so, like, I had my family at the beginning of the year that I was getting closer to. Then I was opening up more to people and like just being in a community of people through that job over the summer. And then from there, the lesson continued forward in whatever ways it continued forward. And for me, it was a lot of taking this energy into this energy. It was a lot of making conscious decisions. I was here. This is where I was. It was a lot of making conscious decisions in the moment to not react or show up from the old spaces, from the chapters that I was in a space of closing. And at first, it took a lot of strength to do it. And so I guess, that's why now it doesn't necessarily take as much strength to come into the things that I'm coming into. It's not that it's extremely easy, but at this point I'm not going back. And so that in and of itself makes it easier. But this is bravely stepping into the new stuff and not needing to know what it is. This lion has its eyes like closed. It just believes that no matter what, it'll be all right because it's proven itself to itself time and time again. Bottom of the deck is the Nine of Swords. Under the Nine of Swords is the Knight of Swords. I feel like this is a Ten of Swords energy, but the Knight is holding on to the 10th sword. And it's not in a way that prevents endings from happening, but it's in a way that prevents like feelings of hopelessness or defeat or too much stagnation. So at the like at the most, it's gonna be Nine of Swords. It may be something that like mentally is like taxing. It requires a lot of like not requires, but it may produce a lot of like thoughts to the point of maybe overthinking sometimes. But still, like with the Fool and the Strength card, like that's why it's not going to reach the Ten of Swords because the Knight of Swords is like, okay, well, I got to move forward anyway. It's nine swords, but we still got to get into it. Under that is the Page of Wands, which is it's like a Renaissance energy. Oh, I'm saying Renaissance energy. The music that I had on at first, it was a cafe music BGM channel. It was like spring something, and it was like March jazz. And I was like, I'm kind of sort of over jazz, low key. Oh, look what just came out! Bottom of the deck is the Four of Pentacles, but the Sun, the Emperor. Okay, I'm digging this energy. The Ten of Wands and the Ace of Wands came out. The Sun, the Emperor, the Ten, and the Ace of Wands. I feel like this Ace of like this is that Page of Wands energy. It was that Renaissance. It's that rebirth. The Sun carries a little bit of the Aksunare, which is the space of light coming into a space that was only darkness. I faced my fears, and now I'm open to entering fully entering spaces that I never would have entered before. It's put me in a position of power, and it allows me to be capable of making choices and decisions that I wouldn't have made before. And with this, it's not necessarily a burden, but it kind of is. Because it's like, for me, sometimes I feel this burden of choice. And it's these things like, man, it would have been easier to not make this decision if I didn't heal from the things I healed from. Like, if you live life and like 50% of your choices are automatic yeses or automatic nos, that's like so much that you don't have to think about. But now it's like, man, like I actually have to sit down and think about this. Like, this is something that I could do now, but should I do it? And so, with the Four of Pentacles at the bottom, what's under the four? The Six of Pentacles, exactly. And the Page of Cups is behind that. There were these Four of Pentacles situations, there were these situations that would automatically put me in an immediate Four of Pentacles state. But now that there's some space there, it changes everything. Because now it's like, well, I don't want to get more of the crap that I used to get. Like, I'm over that. And if I want more, I'm going to have to give more. If I want more, I'm going to have to do more. I'm going to have to be more. And it's like this Ace of Wands, Ten of Wands, into the Four of Pentacles or Ten of Pentacles dynamic, or the Six of Pentacles dynamic, based on choice. And with the Page of Cups, like I said, for me, it's a change in the pattern of emotional habits. This is new emotional experiences because it's related to things that I never would have allowed myself to accept in the first place or before. it was all dangerous and uncharted territory. I was like, ew, like, no, no, thank you. I'm gonna just keep coming on here and rambling. If something resonates, then it resonates. I don't know what these is, but I feel like that's good. It's been a whole hour. Excuse me. It might just be a rambling week. It may be a rambling week where I just pull cards and I talk about my life and my journey and where I am and where I've been and where I'm going and how I'm kind of sort of like processing all of it, I guess. I see a peppermint stick right here I've had since Christmas. I want to make some tea and put it in there. This is gorgeous though. I mean, money path, the leg in the bowl, plenty of material things, stepping into new experience, deepening of friendships, new job, new career. I said I wanted everything and everything came out. I've been doing the work. So why would I not take it? I just need to learn them lessons of patience that, it took me some time to learn. So I'm going to split these, put them back, get a final card out, play some video games. I am actually going to look at some stuff. I may look at some stuff before I play video games. Now that it's on my mind, now that I've remembered. And again, like when I talked about the burden of choice, it's just like life can take so many paths. And it's not that I necessarily need to figure it out, but I'm like, well, now that I'm not bound as much by as much trauma anymore, like I could do anything. How do I choose what I do? Which is relaxation, rejuvenation, and rest. Don't worry about it. It'll come. Don't be impatient. Okay, 2 cards just came out. I got Dark Man and Shark. Ooh. Take care or there will be a loss of material wealth. My money path ain't even solidified and they already saying I could lose it. Hello. Dealings or relationship with a man with dark complexion or hair. With the shark. I don't think this is necessarily bad. What's at the bottom of this half? Kangaroo. There's another card on the table. Unsettled times, need to plan ahead. That would probably actually benefit me a lot. And then what was still on the table, it's vase and wreath. Vase is secret admirer. Wreath is sorrow over loss, but wreath was in reverse when I picked it up. I just got flowers for like the first time ever for my birthday. I was like, oh wow. You don't see them back there anymore because they're out there. Um, they was cool for a minute, but the longer they sat, the more potent the flower smells became. And apparently, I have allergies again ever since that incense. It wasn't bothering me extremely, but secret admirer, sorrow over a loss in reverse. With the shark and the dark man that came out, I see a blue card here under this. I'm going to take them. Oh, look, wealth. It was kind of in reverse, but. And then the rose, romance is in the air. Romance is in the air, connected to wealth. Sorrow over a loss in reverse, connected to the secret admirer. And then take care or there will be a loss of material wealth connected to the dark man. For me, I know what that's about. And it's related to like when I was like, there's something that I feel like I feel like I should be like I feel led to do this. I feel led to keep this in mind as I'm moving into my next chapter. But it makes me uncomfortable to do it. And spirit is like, F your comfort level, F your feelings. Do you want this or not? If you want this, you're going to have to get over it, plain and simple. And I know it's difficult. I know you got reasons why you can't. I know you got reasons why you're scared, but are you really willing to miss out on this or to lose out on this forever? Like, really? Or is that something that, like, and I'm like, no. I mean, y'all already saw strength with the fool and the Knight of Swords with that Knight of Swords. It was like, I don't care if it's scary. We got to do it. Knight of Swords ain't afraid of no swords. Even if it was the Ten of Swords, we ain't afraid. We keep going anyway. We trying to be kings and queens. Can't be afraid of your own suit. Hello? So the box came out. Box says you will receive a gift. Ooh! I mean, it was just my birthday. With the empty chair, someone is leaving your life. This is funny. Because it's like someone is leaving your life, and that's a gift. What's at the bottom? Bottom of the deck is the gavel. Involvement with the law. The apple, temptation will test you. The gavel is carrying another judgment energy. With the apple, someone will test you, or temptation will test you. Temptation will test you. Involvement with the law. Someone is leaving your life, and you will receive a gift. Law doesn't necessarily have to be man made, like it could be cosmic law. With the temptation, or it's the test. It reminds me of when I was talking about, like, to, what did I say? To understand or to interact with the tree of life, we needed the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because it's impossible to understand the intricacies of life without that knowledge. And honestly, temptation for me, devil energy for me would be taking the easy way out. And it's something that I've been trying to intentionally not do. Because again, the Eight of Cups for me, the change for me would probably be like investing more and not being so quick to be like, I'm done. Maybe someone left my life and the gift is the return. And the temptation would fall more along the lines of like pride and ego. And just like I was saying with that judgment card, I think it was the judgment card. It's like, before you go too far with something, ask yourself if it's worth the long term effects. And so there's been quite a few times ever since I met my buddy, like 4 years ago. That was what, 2016. So almost, it'll be 5 years in a few months. Actually, it'll be 5 years next month because we met in April before the before the school year started in August. I feel like we should celebrate. I mean, I'll be down there maybe for a few days. Maybe 5 years. Oh, wow. Where did the time go? Um, but that was one where I like really had to step outside of myself, be willing to see something from a different viewpoint and perspective, take the actual person into account. I think a lot of times without fully realizing it, I would have certain interactions with someone, and I would allow all of my past interactions with other people, like all of that would get me to go, oh, this person is automatically like this, or automatically like that, or they're automatically going to do this. I wasn't giving the person enough credit. And after I've like learned him more, I've realized like, and this is something that he taught me. I think sometimes, and I'll speak for myself this time, when I get upset, it's hard for me to look at the person as that person. All of a sudden, it's like, well, this is what everyone else did. This is how blah, 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 to the point where I'm not necessarily considering the person in front of me. And if the person in front of me is someone who wouldn't intentionally hurt me, or who wouldn't intentionally carry any like malice or negativity around me, then it isn't necessarily fair to me for me to automatically jump to what everybody else did. And so in the moment, or sometimes shortly after, it's like, well, like if I look at the person in front of me, this isn't someone who would do that to me. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying about trust. Like when you trust someone and something happens, you don't necessarily automatically jump to the worst case scenario. A lot of times you give them the benefit of the doubt, or you at least hear them out. And so there could be a temptation to make a snap judgment. But again, I don't think it would really serve me. I don't think I've been doing all of the healing that I've been doing and growing in all the ways that I've been growing to fall into old patterns of behavior. And I think that's what the 8 of Cups that came out like at the jump was all about. Now I get to split this deck in half. I have to split both of these to get them back in their respective boxes. Maybe one day I'll have them somewhere where I don't have to put them back in the box. But that day is not today, even though I have this huge bookshelf right here. But this ain't my house. This ain't my room no more. I'm about to have my own pretty soon.
Ooh, I love it.
Chariot and bottom of the deck, the Ace of Cups. Could be some Cancerian energy. My Mars is in Cancer. I was just talking about that earlier. Mars in Cancer. Ooh, it's gonna be a new dynamic for me. Mars in Cancer trining my Sun in Pisces when I was young. It made me extremely defensive when it came to my family, specifically my little brother. Um, he's kind of sort of the one. And he's actually subscribed to me, but I don't think he watches any of these. If he does, what up, bro? Bro. Um, but he's the one I was like, I really wish I could do something to help him before I leave home. Like, I've never really been in the space of providing for him. Like, I've lived my whole life not wanting to get close or attached to anybody. But he's been the one person that I'm like, if anything happened and I had to provide for him, I would do it. Anything, everything I could. I see him in dreams a lot of times. And not every time I see him in a dream, but a lot of times I see him in a dream, I'm protecting him in some way. Um, but he's also getting older. So, and like the other day, without my knowledge, all of a sudden, out of the blue, apparently things are moving and operating and happening. The chariot is in motion. So I don't have to be here to do that anymore. It's almost like in some way I'm free to live my life. And again, I've never had to provide for him. Like every now and then, if I got some extra money and there's like a game that comes out or something, I'll get it for him. Especially if I want to play it with him, then I'll buy it. Um, but it is something that I've really, really, really wanted to do before I left. And like everything is fine. I'm free to live my life. So that's exciting. Oh, I guess I put the chariot on this half with the Ace of Cups. I actually put the Chariot card on the other half of the deck, but I moved it back because I was trying to balance out the cards. I think I actually saw him in a dream recently, and we were like arguing. I was like, fine, then I'm gonna leave or whatever. I don't know. It probably wasn't that extreme. I don't remember. I remember he was annoying me for some reason. He was saying something I was not a fan of. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, when I see him in a dream, like I'm protecting him. And I'm like, not my little brother. But maybe now Mars and Cancer, it's given me the drive to kind of sort of do the things that I need to do to like create my own family, establish myself, provide for the people that I care about in ways outside of just being like protective. Page of Swords. So I've officially seen all of the pages except for the Page of Pentacles now. I remember a year ago, it was all about the Pages 2.0. These are Pages 2.0. Well, they were Pages 2.0 because the world happened. And for the 2.0, for those who are outside of the energy of the previous paradigm, who are positioned to come into the new one, maybe they had a different experience or a different perspective on what they experienced that led to different realizations, maybe in a way where they are kings and queens 2.0 or knights at least 2.0 now, preparing for the 3.0. Bottom of the deck is the Six of Wands, which is the card of victory. In this deck, the wands, like the lollipops, first of all, they're lollipops. Second of all, they're not necessarily nice and neat. It gives me an energy of like victory isn't always a straightforward path. And sometimes we have to do other things or we feel like we've experienced some kind of setback. But in reality, it's exactly like we're exactly where we need to be. And as long as we're showing up and doing what we need to do in the moment, eventually we get there. So that's what I got. I hope y'all have a good whatever. Whenever you see this, I hope you're acting in alignment to make it even better, and to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I'll catch y'all later. Bye.